Okay, we're going to discuss special topics in emergency service, occupational safety, and health, which is chapter 13 in your text. The learning objectives are: describe the legal considerations of the safety and health program, describe ethical considerations of the safety and health program, describe financial considerations of the safety and health program, describe health and safety considerations in the diversified workforce, and describe the safety and health program implications of future trends and technologies. So as an introduction, there's always legal, ethical, and financial issues that could affect safety and health programs. And when you're developing these programs, you have to review all the possible issues that might come up in any of those things. The increasing diverse workforce and future trends in technology may affect the safety and health program. And grants are one of the means to fund both health and safety programs, as suggested in Life Safety Initiative 10. We're going to talk about legal issues first. You have tort liability, which you have strict liability, intentional liability, negligent liability, and warrant liability. And the issue of liability is complex and changing with every court decision. So what that means is that where something today may be okay to do, a future court decision could change that in the future. So, maybe there might be a design of a fire engine, some kind of equipment we're wearing, but that could change future liabilities. So the first thing we're going to talk about is strict liability. And this is violation of the law or other regulations, even if the violation is unintentional. So you could have legal action because of the consequence of a policy that you had, even if you didn't intend it to. Okay, now this probably isn't as common as, because you'll see is that they have to prove that you really had intention for most of the time. Intentional liability. This is violation of the law or other regulations knowingly, and harm results. So if it can be determined that you violated the law or a regulation, that you could be held accountable. And an issue is that we'll say that there's a seatbelt law and you knowingly don't enforce it. And this could become to a supervisor that it's a seatbelt law in California, and that includes all vehicles. And if you're the captain and you allow your engineer to drive without a seatbelt, this is an intentional liability. And if this person was injured or harmed from that, you could be held liable. Negligent liability. This is when a person fails to do what a reasonable and prudent person would have done under the same or similar circumstances. So if somebody's hurt, let's say, and they could say that, well, you know what, everybody else would have done this and you chose not to do this, then that's negligent liability. And the last one we have is warrant liability. And this is where promised service level is not delivered and harm results. So an example here would be as a city promises to deliver paramedic services, and for some reason they don't have enough paramedics that day, so then they put EMTs on the ambulances, squads, or whatever the method of delivery is. You could be sued for warrant liability because that's a promised level of service. So again, remember that every issue of liability is complex and is changing with every court decision. Legal issues. For liability to be proven, there must be 4 elements present. There has to be a duty or standard to act. So did you have a duty to act, or is there a standard to act? So if you did, they can prove that. Can they prove that there was a breach of duty, either an action or an omission? Let's say, for an example, you just decide not to go on a call and somebody dies. Well, that's a breach of duty. Does your failure cause harm? If there's no harm, chances are then that's not going to be an element for a lawsuit. But if your failure causes harm to someone, then that's one of the 4 elements. And then can they measure that loss or harm? Someone was in a car accident and because you didn't get there in a certain enough time that they lost their arm, or somebody died in a house fire because you chose not to go. So those are the legal issues. Now, American with Disabilities Act. And you'll hear some people say, oh, well, that doesn't apply to the fire service. Well, yes, it does apply to the fire service. And where you see it the most is in our station construction. This act provides protection for an individual with a disability who has one or more of the following: has a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activities, has a record of such impairment, and is regarded as having such an impairment. like I was talking, probably the area where I find that this affects the fire service the most is in our constructions of our station. Quite often, fire stations are two-story structures, and in the old days, they used to be built with stairs going up and a pole coming down. Well, now you'll see that every new fire station, if it's 2 stories or more, will have an elevator, and that's due to this act. And you'll hear people say, well, a firefighter can't be a disabled person. Well, you can't choose who is or is not using that building. And so that you have to have an elevator inside your structure. You have to make sure that the whole building, but what you cannot do is prevent them from taking a fire department test. You have to have the same standard for everybody. That doesn't mean they have to have different treatment, but they have to be able to take that test. Age Discrimination and Employment Act. This is a federal regulation and should be consideration in the safety and health program. So you shouldn't have any documents that say that no firefighter shall be hired if they are 50 years or older or 60 years or older. You can't say that. You have to have a standardized test that would allow them to take the test regardless of age. This protects individuals who are 40 years of age or older from employment discrimination, and it's based on age and applies to both employees and job applicants. So you can't discriminate on somebody just because of their age. It used to be that fire departments made people retire at a certain age, and that's not common anymore. Ethical issues. This is a consideration for every business or organization. You need to have confidentiality in all parts of your program, and especially when we start talking about health. We're saying health and safety, but health, we have to provide confidentiality to all of our employees. And they must have trust and respect that their confidential information will be confidential. And this is essential to the success of our program. Members involved must follow ethical standards required by the organization. Financial issues. Financial issues are always a part of any fire department, city, or county program. You have to work within your budget, and in recent years, budgets have been getting cut left and right. So if your budget keeps getting cut, what you have to do is you have to look for grants to assist you. One of the biggest ones is the Assistant to Firefighters Grant Program. And fire departments can access these grants. It takes paperwork. You have to do research. You have to figure out why you can qualify for the program. And then this money here is usually a one-time funds, but you may be able to might even be able to get extra firefighters for, I believe it's up to like 3 years. And then you're required to pay for them after that. Department of Justice, they have some grants, but I haven't seen too many of those. There's a volunteer fire assistance grants that are there to assist volunteer fire departments. There's hazardous materials emergency preparedness to allow cities and agencies to prepare for any future minor and major hazmats. There was a program called Workplace 2000 determined is that our population growth will slow and the average age of the workforce will rise. More women will enter the workforce, which is what we're seeing. White males will be a smaller percentage of the workforce. Minorities will be a larger share of the new entrants into the labor force. I think you're starting to see all this now, and this is really good because fire departments should reflect their workforce. So if you have an area that is 50% minority, then roughly 50% of the fire department should be reflective of that area. Most fire departments are working hard to try to get more women into the workforce, but it's happening at a slow pace. But I think you'll see more and more of that now. What you have to have is to make these goals successful is you have to have people see their reflection in the workforce. And what I mean by that, they have to see, if you're a woman, that if you see women on the fire departments, then you're going to say, oh, I can enter that job. And also, if you start to see women as fire captains, engineers, battalion chiefs, and you'll start to realize, hey, I can attain those goals. And it applies to all of these. Future technology and trends. There's a lot of exciting things that are coming into the field, and we're seeing more and more of it as computers are becoming more prevalent, and GIS. What GIS is Global Information Systems. And this is where, in the past, where you may have to go back to the station and look up a business to see their inspection history, to see their fire history. Now you can, on a wireless device, you can pull it up and see it from the field, whether you're doing an inspection or whether you're there for a building fire and you're trying to find out who the owners are. Probably one of the, I think, most exciting things is that self-contained breathing apparatus, SCBAs, they're just becoming more and more user-friendly. You're seeing heads-up displays where in your mask you'll be able to see not only your air sources, see how much you have left. You might even someday be able to be inside of a building and have a building plan sent to you. And this is wireless. Also, this will allow for the incident commander to keep track of all the personnel inside with SCBA. It will allow he or she to see whether their air is getting low, and the incident commander can call them out when they need to. SCBAs are really improving. Most recent 2013 standard from NFPA is got some great things in it, and I see just the breathing apparatus are just getting better and better. There's better early warning systems for fire protection. One of the reasons that our numbers of fires are going down is we're finding out about them sooner. With smoke detectors in most of these structures now, and most of the fire codes require to have them, we're getting early warnings where a small fire doesn't turn into a big fire. Improved protective clothing. This is changing on a constant basis, and this is really good. You'll hear some people though say, well, it's bad because we're fully encapsulating our personnel in all this clothing, they can't feel the heat. I feel this is completely wrong. As someone who's been inside of a building that collapsed down on myself and my crew, what saved us that night was our protective clothing, because we had hoods on, we had breathing apparatus on, and we had great clothing. So this is what's making it better for firefighters. So as technology improves, the market will drive the price down. This came from your text. I'm not really sure this is going to happen, because as we strive to make our equipment better, it's constantly changing, and all of this takes research, and it's costing especially the SCBA companies money to do this testing. So I don't see that happening. But I do see issues impacting safety and health programs in the future. As long as we can find a way to pay for it, it will make it better. So summary, you must always look at legal, ethical, and financial issues as well when creating a safety and health plan. Ethics are a part of every organization. Future technology and trends will affect the safety and health program, and the safety and health officer must have a working knowledge of a variety of subjects.